Hello, this is Amber Rain Davis, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel and blog at notableink.com. I'm so happy that you've joined me today for my very first video tutorial. As part of the Altenew April 2018 blog hop, we'll be creating two cards today with the gradient stripe stamp set, which they've released this April. Let's jump right into creating and getting to know the stamp sets we'll be using today. We're using the Gradient Stripes stamp set, the Strength Blooms stamp set, and the Bold Alpha dies. So let's get started. We're starting off with the inking up the gradient stripe background. I don't have the Misty Creative corners, so what I've done here is I've created my own corner with some cardstock, just cut that into an L shape and put that into the corner of the Tonic Tim Holtz stamp platform. So I've inked up the stamp with Altenew Crisp Dye ink. It's one of the mini ink cubes. This one is Coral Berry. Now, as you'll often find with large solid stamp sets, you may need to stamp it a couple times, which is where the stamp platform comes in really handy. I in fact did have to stamp it and ink it up 3 times, I believe, for this particular stamp. You also want to make sure that you condition your stamp. I keep just a regular white eraser on hand to rough up the surface of the stamp before inking it up, and then I just wipe it off with a damp cloth or a stamp chamois before I ink it up for the first time. So I've inked this up in pink, and I did a second piece of cardstock in pigment VersaFine black Onyx ink. Here you can see I have chosen the word love from the Bold Alpha dies, and I've lined those up with a T-square ruler and taped them together. What I'm doing here is just lining it up exactly where I want it on the card. Then I'm going to tape it down to the cardstock so that I've got it in good position. And then I'm going to double up these 2 pieces of cardstock. You can see the black stripes there. And I'm going to push the tape around the edges to hold that in place. I'm going to die cut these at the same time to ensure they're in the exact same place on both pieces of cardstock. So I've run that through the die cut machine and flipped it over to the back so that I can make sure that it has cut completely through on both sides. I'm just popping out the dies here. You want to be really careful. Also, if you feel that it hasn't cut all the way through with it being taped on, you can run it back through the die cut again, and you can either use a metal shim or another piece of cardstock if you didn't get all the way through the first time. So here we're just gently peeling back that tape. And you can see that the black ink transferred over. I actually let the black ink dry for a couple hours, but if you've used that VersaFine Onyx black ink before, it can be a little challenging to work with in that it does take longer to dry, it being a pigment ink. And usually what I do, because I end up smudging over things, is I typically will end up clear heat embossing whenever I use that ink. However, that was not indicated in this particular case. So I'm going to pop out the die pieces and get those lined up. You want to make sure that you keep those small inner pieces of the letters as well. You may want to put those in a small dish to make sure that you don't use them. You're definitely going to fit those back in later on in the project when we do the inlaid die cutting. Here I've cut some red and black fun foam. This is adhesive fun foam, and I've cut that into small pieces so that I can use the mini Blossom die cut machine from Altenew. This is fantastic for any kind of sentiments that you're using, to use it just right on your desk. It's much easier than pulling out your big die cut machine. So I've really enjoyed using this. It came in really handy. So what I'm doing is I'm using those same die cut letters to cut through the fun foam, and I'm going to use that to stack up my letters so that they sit up above the card fronts, and you'll see that when we put the card together later on. So I've cut this out of red, and I'm going to cut it out of black. And so you can see that it has the adhesive back there, and that's just going to save me a little bit of time so that I don't have to use adhesive on those areas. You're going to see me pull out the L And then you're going to see me change my, so you see I've got a little bowl up there to hold on my pieces so I don't lose them. You're going to see me pop that L back in because I do find it easier to stack the cardstock letters over the fun foam when they're still in the negative piece there. So you see me start to pull them out, and then I'll go ahead and put them back in once I think better of it. So here I'm going to go through and put Scor-Tape. This is 1/8" Scor-Tape onto the foam die cuts. This is going to allow us to have a double-sided adhesive so that we can stack the cardstock die cuts on top. So I'm going to go through and do the red and the black version. So we're going to add the letters to the adhesive now. You're going to see me check the die cut to the card front there to make sure that the stripes are lined up correctly. And keeping the foam pieces in the negative there really helps to get the die cuts lined up and matched up very nicely, because when you pull the foam pieces out of there, sometimes they can get stretched in a weird manner. So this just keeps everything lined up correctly. So now we're going to take the card fronts and put adhesive on those. These are not going to be popped up with foam. These are going to go straight directly onto the card front, and it wasn't until I actually created this video that I realized I could have saved myself a lot of effort. So again, I'm using this thicker Scor-Tape because it's just a lot easier for me than the wet adhesive, which I tend to get all over the place. So this is one of my favorite adhesives. I absolutely love it. It's super strong and it sticks really well. What you're going to see me do here though is use the 1/8" Scor-Tape to go around each one of those letters, and it wasn't until I was doing the voiceover for the video that I realized this was completely unnecessary. I could have just put another thick piece completely over all of those holes where the letters were, because I'm obviously going to put the die cuts right on top. So this got a little bit painstaking, but there you go. That's what happens when you're a new card maker, and I definitely learned how I could do that faster next time, so that was nice. So we've got all the adhesive on the back, and I'm peeling up just a couple of the pieces from the bottom. You see that I'm not pulling it off of that second strip completely. I want to get the bottom lined up correctly before I take off too much of the adhesive backing, because otherwise there's no wiggle room. Once it goes down, there's no getting that Scor-Tape up. And so that just helps me get things placed correctly before I take off that backing. You'll see me take off the rest and get things lined up nicely. Once we have the card front onto the card base, we're going to start inlaying those foam pieces that we have. So now we're going to start inlaying the die cut pieces by removing the backing from the fun foam. You can see that we're alternating the pink and black inked up letters, which adds a really nice graphic effect. It's pretty striking as the end result. So we're just going to keep fitting these in, and of course making sure before you lay down those pieces that your stripes line up. Excuse my hair there. I was leaning over to make sure that we have that lined up. And we'll just continue on with the rest of the letters. So all in all, it's a fairly quick card, just with the inking and some die cutting. It's a pretty simple card in terms of its design. So we've got our last letter here, and then we definitely want to make sure that we put in our small pink pieces. So in the middle of the O, and then also in the middle of the E there. To put those pieces in, I'm going to use a Zig 2-way glue pen, which is perfect to get into those small pieces. I'm going to use some tweezers in order to pick those pieces up. Again, making sure that your stripes are lined up correctly so that everything looks seamless, and just pop those right in there. I often use that flat end of the tweezers just like that, so I don't get little pinpricks in the top of the die cut. I just think it looks a little bit nicer that way. and we'll go ahead and put in the small E piece, and we'll be all done with that part of the card. Another thing that I did that I didn't capture on video was add a sub-sentiment in black on this pink card and in white on the black card, and that just says sending, and that was from the Strength Blooms stamp set. So you can see that here with the sending love on both cards. I hope you enjoyed the video today and will join me again for another tutorial. If you did enjoy these cards, please hit the subscribe button and visit me on my blog at notableink.com. Please enjoy the rest of the blog hop for Altenew's April 2018 release.